Good evening. You've arrived at a quiet place meant for rest. There is nothing you need to solve tonight, nothing you need to understand, nothing you need to remember. This is a calm science story, shared slowly, at a steady pace, designed to remain in the background as you rest. You don't need to listen closely. You don't need to follow each sentence. If your attention drifts away, that's completely fine. Right now, your body already knows what to do. Breathing is happening on its own. The surface beneath you is supporting your weight. There is no effort required. This audio isn't here to guide you toward an outcome. It isn't trying to lead you anywhere. It doesn't build toward a conclusion. It simply stays consistent, predictable, quiet. Everything you'll hear tonight is based on well-established scientific understanding, not ideas meant to impress, not theories meant to surprise, just observations that have been measured and described carefully over time. They'll be shared without urgency, because nothing here is happening quickly, and nothing here requires your response. If you fall asleep at any point, that's expected. If you wake later and hear a few words, that's fine too. This story doesn't depend on sequence. It doesn't rely on remembering what came before. You may notice pauses between phrases. Those pauses are intentional. They're part of the rhythm. They allow space, not for thinking, just for settling. Your thoughts don't need to be controlled. Some may appear briefly, others may fade without finishing. There's no need to hold on to them. For now, all that matters is that you're here, resting, listening if you want to, not listening if you don't. The science will continue quietly in the background, slowly, evenly, just as natural processes tend to do. Nothing will change suddenly. Nothing will demand attention. You can let the sound remain where it is and allow the rest to happen on its own. As the sound continues, there's no need to adjust anything right away. If your body feels settled, it can remain exactly as it is. Breathing is already happening. It doesn't need to be guided. It doesn't need to change. Each breath arrives, and then it leaves, at a pace that suits you. The body responds naturally to a quiet environment. When nothing is asked of it, it tends to settle on its own. You may notice the face becoming softer, the small muscles around the eyes, the jaw resting without being held in place. There's no instruction to release anything, no effort required to relax. The nervous system understands how to move toward rest. It does this without direction, simply by noticing that nothing urgent is happening. The shoulders may feel supported, not pulled down, just held evenly by gravity. Your arms are where they are. They don't need to be positioned in a certain way. They don't need symmetry. They're simply present, resting along with the rest of the body. If there's any remaining tension, it doesn't need to disappear. The body doesn't require perfect stillness to rest. It only needs time and safety. The chest rises and falls gently. The rhythm may change slightly from moment to moment. That's normal. Breathing adjusts quietly on its own, without asking, without instruction. Lower in the body, the abdomen moves with each breath. There's no need to hold it in, no need to control it. The movement is small, steady, unremarkable. Your legs are supported by the surface beneath you. Their weight is already being carried. There's nothing to balance, nothing to keep upright. The feet don't need attention. They don't need warmth or sensation. They can simply exist at the far end of the body. As these sensations remain steady, the brain begins to notice the lack of demand. There's no task waiting, no response required. This is often when mental activity starts to slow, not because it's being pushed away, but because there's nothing pressing to react to. Thoughts may still appear, fragments of the day, images, half-formed ideas. They don't need to be followed. They don't need to be finished. They can pass through awareness the way sound passes through a quiet room, present for a moment, then gone. If attention drifts away from these words, that's completely fine. The body doesn't rely on continuous input. It responds just as well to consistency, to tone, to rhythm. The voice you're hearing isn't here to direct you anywhere. It remains steady, allowing your internal systems to settle at their own pace. There's nowhere else to be, nothing to prepare for. The night doesn't require readiness. You can continue resting exactly as you are, breathing, supported, unchanged. The body already knows how to do this. As the body remains settled, attention often becomes less focused on specific sensations. It can begin to rest in a more general sense of steadiness. There isn't a clear line between being awake and being asleep. The shift usually happens gradually, quietly, without any clear signal. In everyday life, many natural changes unfold this way. Light fades in the evening without a single moment when day becomes night. Temperature changes slowly across hours. Sound softens as activity decreases. These transitions don't require effort. They don't need to be managed. They happen on their own. The body is familiar with this kind of rhythm. It developed in environments shaped by repetition and gentle change, not by constant alertness. Because of that, predictable patterns tend to feel safe. They don't ask for quick decisions. They don't demand attention. Sleep follows this same principle. It doesn't arrive all at once. It begins with small shifts. Awareness becomes less sharp. Thoughts feel less structured. Time starts to feel less defined. The brain responds to consistency in much the same way the body does. When nothing new is introduced, there's less reason to stay alert. Instead of moving toward a single state, the brain moves through a range of patterns. These patterns repeat. They return. They pass. This movement isn't something that needs to be noticed closely. It continues whether or not it's being observed. Across the night, the brain naturally cycles through different levels of activity. Some periods feel lighter, others feel deeper. These changes are not controlled by intention. They are guided by internal timing and by the absence of external demands. There is no need to keep track of where you are within this process. The body and brain manage it without instruction. As stimulation decreases, the nervous system shifts its focus inward. Signals related to the outside world become less important. Internal rhythms take priority. This is why the environment matters. A steady sound, a consistent tone, a lack of sudden change. When conditions remain predictable, the brain doesn't need to stay prepared. It can move at a slower pace. Thinking often becomes less verbal during this time, not because it stops completely, but because it no longer needs to organize itself around tasks or decisions. Images may appear briefly, fragments of memory, loose impressions. They don't need to form a story. They don't need to lead anywhere. These experiences are part of the normal transition towards sleep. They come and go without meaning or purpose. There is nothing here to follow, nothing to reach. The voice continues at the same steady pace, not to hold attention, but to provide a consistent background, something familiar enough that the brain doesn't need to stay alert. This is how rest often begins, not with a change you notice, but with a change you don't need to. And as these quiet rhythms continue, the body and brain remain free to move deeper into the night. As rest deepens, the experience of sleep doesn't remain the same throughout the night. It shifts quietly, not in sharp steps, not in a way that needs attention. Instead, the brain moves through different patterns of activity. These patterns change slowly. They repeat. They return. This movement happens every night, whether it's noticed or not. Some moments feel closer to wakefulness. Thoughts may still appear. Awareness may still flicker. At other times, everything feels more distant. The outside world fades. Internal activity becomes quieter. These patterns are not separate places to reach. They aren't levels to move through on purpose. They are simply the way the sleeping brain behaves over time. As the night continues, the brain doesn't stay in one pattern for long. It shifts gently from one to another, then back again. This cycling is natural. It doesn't require effort. It doesn't need direction. The body follows along with these changes. Breathing adjusts slightly. Muscle tone shifts. Heart rate varies in small, steady ways. None of this needs to be noticed closely. These changes don't mean something new is happening. They don't signal progress. They don't lead toward a goal. They are simply part of how sleep unfolds. Because these patterns repeat, the brain becomes familiar with them. There's nothing unexpected, nothing to prepare for. Over time, awareness often becomes less interested in tracking these shifts. It doesn't need to label them. It doesn't need to understand them. They can happen in the background. This is why sleep doesn't feel like a straight path. It moves in gentle loops rather than lines. The same types of moments appear discouragingly often. Lighter moments, deeper moments. Neither is better than the other. Neither needs to last. They pass naturally, one giving way to the next. Throughout the night, these repeating patterns create a rhythm, a slow, steady rhythm that doesn't rush. The brain follows this rhythm without awareness, just as the body follows breathing without instruction. There's no advantage in trying to stay with any one pattern. There's no need to notice when one ends and another begins. Sleep doesn't require that kind of attention. In fact, paying less attention often allows these shifts to feel smoother, more continuous, less distinct. As the environment remains quiet, the brain is free to continue this movement without interruption, without correction. The voice you're hearing remains steady for this reason, not to guide the process, but to avoid disrupting it. When nothing changes suddenly, the brain doesn't need to react. It can remain open, unfocused. These repeating patterns have been observed and described carefully through scientific study. They are consistent. They appear across people and across nights. But knowing that isn't required here. You don't need to remember any of this. You don't need to follow the description. The patterns will continue whether or not they're understood. They will repeat quietly as the night unfolds, just as they always do. And as these shifts continue, awareness can soften further, allowing the rhythm to carry the rest forward on its own. Among the repeating patterns that appear during sleep, there is one that tends to return several times across the night. It often occurs after the body has already been resting for a while, and it becomes more common as the night goes on. During these periods, the brain shows a different style of activity. Not the same as when fully awake, but not the same as deeper rest either. Scientists refer to this pattern as REM sleep. The name comes from small, rapid movements of the eyes that can occur while the eyes remain closed. These movements are subtle. They are not something the sleeping person is usually aware of. At the same time, the brain becomes more active in certain regions. Electrical patterns change. Signals move more quickly between areas. Even so, the body remains at rest. During REM sleep, the muscles of the body are generally less active. This reduction in muscle tone happens automatically. It does not require effort or control. The purpose of this change is not something that needs to be considered here. What matters is that it happens reliably, night after night. Breathing continues on its own. Heart rate may vary slightly. These shifts remain within normal, stable ranges. From the outside, the body appears calm and still. From the inside, the brain is following its natural rhythm. REM sleep does not occur all at once. It appears, it fades, then it returns again later. These periods are part of the same repeating cycle that continues throughout the night. They are not separate from the rest of sleep. They are woven into it. There is no need to track when these moments happen. The brain already knows the timing. Most people are not aware of entering or leaving REM sleep. There is usually no clear signal. The transition is quiet, unremarkable. Because these patterns repeat regularly, the nervous system treats them as familiar. There is no alarm response, no need to react. REM sleep has been observed carefully using well-established methods. Its features are consistent across people and across cultures. This consistency is part of what makes it easy for the brain to move through these periods without awareness. They do not require attention. They do not require interpretation. They are simply one part of the larger rhythm that continues through the night. These periods of REM sleep are often linked with experiences that are later described as dreams. This connection has been observed consistently. When people are awakened during REM sleep, they are more likely to report having been dreaming. This does not mean that dreaming only happens during these times, but REM sleep is where many remembered dreams tend to occur. During these moments, the brain continues to generate internal activity. Images may appear. Sounds may be simulated. Sensations may feel present, even though the body remains still. These experiences arise without intention. They are not chosen. They are not directed. The brain is not trying to create a message. It is not attempting to communicate meaning. It is simply active in a particular way. Because muscle activity is reduced during REM sleep, the body does not move in response to these internal experiences. This allows the brain to remain engaged while the body stays at rest. This balance happens automatically. It does not require awareness. The timing of REM sleep changes across the night. Earlier periods tend to be shorter. Later periods often last longer. This pattern is common. It has been measured repeatedly. Even so, there is no need to notice when these changes occur. The sleeping brain does not track them. From the perspective of experience, these moments often blend together. There is no clear beginning, no clear ending. Dreams do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with instructions. They may feel detailed or vague or fragmented. They may fade quickly or not be remembered at all. All of these outcomes are normal. The brain does not require dreams to be recalled in order for sleep to continue. Memory is not a requirement here. What matters is that these periods pass naturally. They arise, they settle, they give way to other patterns. REM sleep does not interrupt rest. It is part of it. These moments do not need interpretation. They do not need to be examined. They can come and go without attention. As the night continues, the brain will return to these patterns again, quietly, predictably. And just as before, the process will unfold on its own, without effort, without awareness. Dreams are a common part of human sleep. Most people experience them regularly, even if they are not always remembered. They do not require effort. They do not require attention. They appear on their own. From a scientific point of view, dreams are understood as experiences created by the brain during sleep. They arise internally. They do not depend on what is happening in the environment. During sleep, the brain continues to generate activity. Some of that activity takes the form of images. Some of it resembles sound, movement, or sensation. These elements can combine in different ways. Sometimes they form a loose sequence. Sometimes they remain disconnected. Dreams do not follow the same rules as waking thought. They are not organized around goals. They are not checked for accuracy. This is one reason they can feel unfamiliar or fragmented when remembered later. It is important to note that dreams are not messages that need to be interpreted. They are not instructions. They are not symbols that must be decoded. Current scientific understanding does not support the idea that dreams carry hidden meanings meant to be uncovered. Instead, dreams appear to reflect ongoing brain activity during sleep. They draw from memory, from recent experiences, from older impressions. This does not mean that a dream is about something in a direct or meaningful way. It simply means that the brain uses material it already has. Much of this process happens without awareness. The brain does not select content intentionally. It does not aim for coherence. Because of this, dreams often change direction. Scenes may shift suddenly. People may appear and disappear. These changes are normal. They do not indicate a problem. They do not require explanation. Some dreams are vivid. Others are faint. Many are not remembered at all. All of these outcomes fall within a normal range. Memory for dreams is inconsistent by nature. The brain does not treat dream content as information that must be stored. When people wake during or shortly after a dream, fragments may be recalled. When they do not, the experience usually fades. This fading does not affect the function of sleep. Sleep continues whether or not dreams are remembered. It is also common for dreams to include sensations that feel real in the moment: movement, emotion, sound. These sensations are generated internally. They do not involve the body responding physically. The brain creates them while the body remains at rest. This separation is part of normal sleep physiology. It allows internal activity to continue without disrupting rest. Dreams can occur during different parts of the night. They do not follow a fixed schedule that needs to be noticed. They may appear briefly or last longer. They may repeat similar themes or never do so again. There is no need to monitor this process. There is no benefit in trying to influence it. Dreams do not need to be controlled. They do not need to be guided. They arise, they pass. From the perspective of sleep, they are simply one of many things the brain does while resting. They do not interrupt sleep. They do not prevent rest. They happen quietly, within a system that is already designed to continue without attention. And as the night moves on, dreams may appear again, or they may not. Either way, the process remains the same: steady, automatic. The brain continues doing what it has learned to do over time, following patterns that do not require awareness. And you do not need to follow any of this. It can remain in the background, just as it is. researchers have noticed that certain types of brain activity during sleep tend to involve areas related to memory and emotion. This does not mean that sleep is actively solving problems. It does not mean that the brain is working toward a goal. It simply reflects patterns that have been observed over time. During some parts of the night, especially during periods of REM sleep, activity in regions associated with emotion can be more noticeable. At the same time, areas involved in planning or decision-making tend to be less active. This balance has been measured using a variety of methods. The observations are consistent, but the interpretation remains careful. Based on what is currently understood, some researchers suggest that sleep may be connected to how experiences are handled after the day has ended. Memories are not stored as fixed records. They are dynamic. They change slightly each time they are revisited. During sleep, fragments of recent experiences may become active again. Older impressions may also appear. This activity does not follow a clear order. It is not organized around importance or meaning. There is no indication that the brain is reviewing events in a deliberate way. It is not selecting what matters. It is not deciding what to keep. Instead, patterns of activity appear to shift naturally, guided by internal timing rather than intention. Emotional tone can sometimes be present during these periods. Feelings may arise briefly, then fade. This does not mean that emotions are being resolved. It does not mean that anything is being completed. It only reflects that emotional systems, like many others in the brain, remain active at times during sleep. Some scientists describe this as a period when the brain is less influenced by external input. With fewer signals coming in from the environment, internal activity becomes easier to detect. Even so, this activity does not need to be interpreted. It does not carry instructions. The brain does not require awareness in order for these shifts to occur. They continue whether or not they are noticed. Not every night follows the same pattern. Some nights involve more remembered dreams, others involve fewer. Some nights feel emotionally neutral, others may not. All of these variations fall within a normal range. There is no recommended way to influence this process. There is no need to encourage or discourage it. Sleep does not improve when it is monitored closely. In many cases, it becomes easier when attention softens. The brain has been moving through these patterns long before they were studied. It learned to do so without conscious involvement. What researchers describe are observations of something that already happens naturally. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be adjusted. As the night continues, these gentle shifts in activity may return, or they may pass quietly. Either way, the larger rhythm remains unchanged. Sleep continues. The brain continues, without effort, without awareness. And there is no need to follow any of this closely. It can remain in the background, just as the rest of the night does. By now, there is no need to keep track of what has already been said. Nothing here depends on remembering details. Nothing is building toward a conclusion. The patterns being described continue whether or not they are followed. Sleep does not move forward in a straight line. It repeats. It returns. The brain continues shifting through familiar rhythms. Breathing continues on its own. The body remains supported. There is no signal that something new is about to happen. From this point on, there is no additional information that needs to be understood. No new ideas that require attention. The same themes will return, quietly, in slightly different words, at the same steady pace. If you find that listening becomes less clear, that is expected. Words may blur together. Pauses may feel longer. Meaning does not need to stay sharp. The voice can move into the background. It does not need to be followed. There is no advantage in staying awake for what comes next. The rhythm will remain the same. The science does not become more detailed. It does not become more complex. Everything continues as it has been. If sleep arrives now, nothing is missed. The night does not require awareness. If awareness returns later, it can drift again just as easily. There is no correct way to experience this moment. Some nights, rest comes quickly. Other nights, it arrives in stages. Both are normal. The body does not need instruction. The brain does not need reassurance. The environment remains quiet. Nothing shifts suddenly. The same steady patterns continue. The same gentle rhythm remains in place. From here on, the words are no longer meant to carry information. They are only meant to remain consistent. Like a sound that does not change direction. Like movement that does not ask to be noticed. You do not need to follow this any further. You do not need to stay with the sentences. The process continues without attention, and the night has room to unfold on its own. The same quiet patterns continue through the night. They do not change direction. They do not move toward an outcome. The brain shifts between familiar states, lighter moments, deeper moments. These shifts happen without effort. They happen whether or not they are noticed. Periods of dreaming may appear. They may pass. Images may form briefly, then dissolve. There is no need to follow them. No need to remember where they came from. The brain generates activity, then it settles again. This movement repeats in the same gentle way, over and over. REM sleep returns, then fades. Other patterns follow, then return again later. Nothing here needs to be tracked. The timing is already handled. The body remains still. Breathing continues at its own pace. Muscle tone stays low. The surface beneath you continues to support your weight. From one moment to the next, very little changes. The night moves slowly. Dreams may feel present, or they may not be noticed at all. Both are normal. Some nights include more internal images. Other nights include fewer. There is no preference. There is no correct balance. The brain does not aim for consistency from night to night. It follows conditions as they are. This repetition is part of what allows rest to continue. Nothing unexpected appears. Because the patterns are familiar, the nervous system does not stay alert. There is nothing new to prepare for. Thoughts may appear briefly, then pass without finishing. Words may still be heard, but they no longer need to be interpreted. The voice remains steady. It does not introduce change. It stays where it is, providing a constant background. As the same ideas return, they no longer need to be processed. They can blend together. REM sleep remains part of the rhythm. Dreams remain part of the rhythm. They do not stand out. They do not interrupt. They arise within a system that is already moving slowly. The night continues in this way, repeating, returning. Nothing builds, nothing resolves. The repetition itself becomes the structure, and within that structure, attention can soften further. There is less to follow, less to hold. The process continues without effort, without awareness. The same gentle patterns remain in place. Across many nights, the same general rhythm tends to repeat. Sleep does not need to be identical from one night to the next. It only needs to remain familiar. Some nights include more periods of dreaming. Other nights include fewer. Some nights feel lighter, others feel deeper. These variations happen naturally. They do not signal improvement or decline. The brain does not aim to produce the same experience each night. It responds to the conditions that are present. Across time, the same basic patterns return. They have been observed in the same way across many people. REM sleep appears again and again. Dreaming may return, then pass. None of this requires attention. The brain does not need to be reminded how to do this. It learned these rhythms early on. Even when sleep feels different from one night to the next, the underlying structure remains steady. This consistency is what allows sleep to continue without effort. There is no need to evaluate how the night is going. There is no benefit in comparing one night to another. Sleep does not improve through monitoring. It tends to settle more easily when it is allowed to unfold. Over longer periods of time, the brain continues following these same patterns. They do not drift away. They do not require adjustment. The presence or absence of remembered dreams does not change this. The depth of sleep does not need to be measured. The nervous system responds best when it is not being watched closely. Repetition provides that sense of safety. The same cycles return. The same gentle shifts occur. They remain part of the night whether or not they are noticed. As awareness softens, time can begin to feel less distinct. Minutes do not need to be counted. There is no clear boundary between one moment and the next. The night does not move toward a finish. It does not rush. It continues at the same unhurried pace. Across nights, across weeks, the same quiet system remains in place. The brain continues resting in the way it has learned to do, without instruction, without awareness. And in this steadiness, there is nothing new to follow. The same rhythms remain, the same gentle motion continues. They do not ask to be noticed. They do not require response. They simply carry on, one night at a time. The rhythm continues without change. Nothing shifts. Nothing resolves. The same steady patterns remain in place. Sleep continues moving through familiar cycles. The brain follows the same gentle motion. Without awareness, dreams may appear, or they may not. REM sleep may return, then fade again. These changes do not stand out. They do not ask to be noticed. Breathing continues at its own pace. The body remains supported. There is nothing to hold in place, nothing to adjust. The voice stays where it is, consistent, even. Words arrive, then pass. Sentences do not need to be completed. They do not need to connect. The space between them is enough. Time no longer needs to feel structured. Moments blend together. There is no clear point where one thought ends and another begins. The brain does not need to organize anything now. It does not need to follow meaning. Sound can remain as sound. The same ideas return quietly. Sleep, dreaming, rest. They no longer need explanation. They repeat only to maintain rhythm. The night continues in this way, slowly, evenly. Nothing new is introduced. There is no signal that something important is about to happen. Awareness can soften further. It does not need to stay with the words. If attention drifts away, it does not need to return. If sleep has already arrived, the sound continues without needing to be heard. The body remains where it is. Breathing continues without effort. The environment stays quiet and unchanged. The same gentle motion carries on. Patterns repeat, then repeat again. There is no advantage in noticing when one moment passes into the next. The process does not depend on observation. Words may begin to blur together. Pauses may feel longer. Meaning fades into tone. The voice becomes part of the background. Nothing here depends on an outcome. There is nothing to complete. The brain does not need instruction now. It already knows how to remain still. It already knows how to rest. The same rhythm continues, unhurried, unconcerned. Sleep does not move toward an ending. It unfolds. The motion remains gentle. The pace remains steady. Nothing changes direction. Sound continues quietly in the background, without urgency, without intention. If awareness returns briefly, it can drift again just as easily. If it does not, the night continues on its own. There is no moment to mark, no final thought to reach. The words are no longer carrying information. They are only carrying rhythm. That rhythm does not need to be understood. It can remain exactly as it is. The night continues. The motion continues. And the quiet remains.